Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched Cruella. Let's talk about it. So Cruella is directed by Craig Gillespie, and he also directed I, Tonya, which is a film that I very much enjoyed. Now this is yet another entry into Disney's quite long and storied catalogue of live action remakes-esque, except this time around this story kind of parallels Maleficent more than the other live action remakes that Disney has been pushing out for the last decade. Now it makes sense that Disney would try to replicate Maleficent both in story and in terms of success, because it was quite a successful entry into their live action remake archives. Unfortunately, it kind of fell off with the second film. Okay, the second film was a mess, but I will still stand by the first film. I feel like the first half of the first film was quite compelling. I loved Angelina Jolie's portrayal of the character. I think that's what really shone about those films to begin with. Her portrayal of Maleficent was just so deliciously evil, but at the same time she had this kind of maternal side to her, the way that she was looking after Aurora. That was what was really compelling there, that kind of mother-daughter relationship that developed between the two. And so I completely understand why Disney would be like, we want that, but with her. And so in comes Emma Stone portraying the character of a young Cruella, and I have to say, guys, I had a fun time. I like this film. I like this film quite a bit. I really feel like Cruella shines as a film. I really feel like it's a film that's worth getting excited over, that it's really fun and enjoyable. I think Emma Stone did a great job in this role. We will dive into all of my thoughts on this, but of course, as per usual, before we do any of that, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. That would really help my channel. So now, without further ado, let's get into this. So first and foremost, I have to admit, okay, I have to disclose that this is the first film since December that I saw in the cinema. Yes, the cinemas are back in the UK and I couldn't be happier. Look at the smile. I was so excited to see this film in the cinema and I had a great time with it. Now, I mention this because the previous time that I saw a film in the cinema, I also had a very positive opinion of it, and that was with Wonder Woman 1984, and that turned out to be quite controversial. That turned out to be in the case of Wonder Woman 1984, like, I actually really enjoyed that film, and I went a long way to go see it in the cinemas right before lockdown here in the UK, as I was surprised to find that there was so much backlash, although I do understand where that backlash stems from now. But I have to say, like, in the case of Cruella, unless some big scandal comes out about this film as well, I stand by the fact that I really enjoyed this. I stand by the fact that I really enjoyed Cruella. As I mentioned before, I think Emma Stone ended up being perfectly cast, even down to her accent, okay? I'm not going to give her a hard time about the accent. I feel like she did a pretty good job. I do feel like there were moments where we're really playing it up, and it's also interesting because you could tell that the script was written by Americans, because there was certain, vernacular that was quite American, and it was bizarre to hear it in an English accent. But I do think she did a great job, especially when she was portraying the character of Estella, who is distinctively different from Cruella, kind of like how she has, I guess, DID, like just multiple personalities in some ways. But there's a clear distinction between when she is Estella and when she is Cruella. And even though I didn't feel like Estella's transition into Cruella was quite as seamless, quite as melded as it could have been, I do think that Emma Stone did a really good job of portraying both sides of this character. And I just feel like Emma Stone does a great job of acting this kind of innocent role, this kind of innocent intern who just wants to learn. She just loves this designer so much and she admires her and she's such a big deal. She just wants to learn. She's just happy to be breathing in the same air as her. That slowly but surely starts to wear off as she starts to realize that this designer is basically taking credit for everyone else's work. The Baroness is very much an attention. She loves attention, okay? She loves having the spotlight on her. She likes taking credit for the air that everyone else breathes, okay? And so Estella relatively quickly starts to realize that, you know, not all is well when it comes to the house of the Baroness. She's not really doing a lot of the work. It's people that are under her who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. She's very good at delegating, I guess, and she's also very good at killing off the competition, making sure that no one is around her to steal any of the spotlight from her. That's what she's particularly good at doing. But then you have Cruella pop up as this kind of rival fashionista, this rival designer, and of course it's Estella who's behind her. But I really like that dynamic, the idea that the one thing that the Baroness can't even imagine, that like something that she can't even fathom, she can't deal with, is having someone else steal her spotlight, especially when she's at the peak of her career. And then Cruella comes in like this massive star, this massive overnight sensation within the fashion world in this time, and she makes this huge splash. You know, every single event that the Baroness has painstakingly worked on gets trashed by Cruella. She just ends up taking all of the spotlight, all of the credit, and that's something the Baroness cannot handle. So I really like that dynamic, that rivalry that stems between the two characters, and I think once again Emma Stone did a great job of portraying both sides of Cruella in that case. And I also think, to Emma Thompson's credit, okay, the two Emmas, okay, battling it out for the spotlight, Emma Thompson was like excellent. Emma Thompson, I will say, when it comes to Emma Stone's iteration of this character, I feel like she leans more towards Glenn Close's iteration of the character. It seems as though it's an origin story for that version of Cruella as opposed to the original version of Cruella from 101 Dalmatians. I haven't watched that film in a long time though, so don't quote me on that. I feel like she's more akin to Glenn Close's version, even though Glenn Close's version was even more unhinged. Like, Glenn Close does not get enough credit for just portraying this excellent version of Cruella. And to be fair, a lot of that also had to do with the costuming in the live action 101 Dalmatians films. Just overall, those films are so sorely underrated. I remember growing up with them and watching them first before I even saw the animated versions. But it is absolutely undeniable that as fun as those films are and as great as Glenn Close's iteration of Cruella is, the costuming in the live action version of 101 Dalmatians is just mwah. And I am so happy to report, I'm so happy to let you guys know that they kept the same energy for this film. The costumes in this film are it. The costumes in this film were giving everything they were supposed to give. I think once again Emma Stone's performance, her portrayal as both Estella and Cruella, was amplified, was supported by the incredible costumes in this film. And it's the same for Emma Thompson. Everyone was looking good. I think costume designer Jenny Beavan, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, I think she did a splendid job. I think she did a magnificent job. She fully took advantage of the fact that this is set in London in the 1960s. We're delving into two sides of the fashion industry here. You have the kind of classic, you know, early 20th century side that's kind of still holding on with, you know, the Baroness representing that side of fashion, the kind of more antiquated, traditional, conservative side of fashion. And then here comes Emma Stone's Cruella, just crashing the party with her punk vibes, with her, you know, London juvenile punk alternative vibes. I just feel like the costume department understood the assignment. The costume department did the research, they did their homework, they understood the fashion scene at that time and place, and they incorporated that into this film so well. And honestly, it's to the film's credit, because at its very core, this film is a fashion film. Like, I was surprised to see how much of a fashion film this film really is. Like, that's... And listen, I have a feeling that this is one of those occasions where the Academy will be tempted to ignore the excellent costuming displayed in this film. And I just want to start right now. I just want to start the campaign right now and say, please don't do that. Please don't ignore this film for a nomination for costume design. I will I will protest. I will be so upset, because I said this time and time again, when it comes to the Academy, they nominate the same 5 films from all of these categories, when in reality they should be looking for the best of the best for each category. And in the case of Cruella, it's not a typical awards film, but it should absolutely be considered for these specific technical categories, because it absolutely excelled in them. And if a film like Suicide Squad can win for hair and makeup, rightfully so, because the hair and makeup was excellent in that film, I think this should be in contention for hair and makeup, and also for costuming in particular, because the wigs were a bit so costuming in particular. I was also really surprised to see how much I enjoyed Jasper and Horace, who are Cruella's sidekicks. I really like these characters. What? Like, if you think back to the original Jasper and Horace from 101 Dalmatians, there's nothing there. There's really nothing there. Okay, these are just a bunch of bumbling idiots. Okay, imbeciles, as Cruella calls them, unfairly so, because they're smarter in this film and they're more likable in this film. So I don't think they deserve to be called imbeciles. But yeah, like, that's when she's going on a mad one and calling everyone stupid. I really enjoyed the characters of Jasper and Horace, especially Jasper. Jasper was so likable. I think Joel Fry did a great job with this role. I feel like he really just gave Jasper that extra oomph, that extra humanity. He wasn't just a bumbling idiot. He was quite likable and quite sympathetic, and you could tell that he really cared about Cruella on a personal level. You know, he saw her as part of their kind of dysfunctional family, and yeah, like he even says himself that he finds it difficult to say no to her, perhaps because there's a bit of a love situation going on, like, who knows. But either way, they do have that chemistry there, so if they did want to go in that direction later on, then they could, and it'd be quite convincing. And in the case of Horace, like, yeah, he was comedic relief, but he also had like heart. Like, he was also quite likable. I like these two. Now with this film, we also had the addition of Artie, who's portrayed by John McCrea, or John McCrea, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, so sorry about that. But this is kind of the first openly gay or openly LGBTQ character that Disney has had in one of their major films. I mean, they keep bringing up this milestone, and you know, previously they've had openly gay characters in like Avengers Endgame and Beauty and the Beast. In the case of Beauty and the Beast, it was a blink and you'll miss it moment. Like, there was no full commitment there, okay, to the point where countries like Russia were able to edit that out real quick and with no problem, which I'm sure was by design. So it didn't really have that impact that it was supposed to. But in the case of Artie, you can't really edit him out, because he's actually quite integral to the story. Like, he actually plays a role in this story, and I really appreciated that. I feel like his character added something to the film, to the dynamic that Cruella had with Jasper and Horace. I think he very much fit in again with the time period and with the fashion scene. Like, he felt like he belonged in, you know, that era of London fashion. So I feel like it made sense, because he was basically the only one who had that foot in the more artistic world. His name is Artie. So yeah, I just feel like it made sense, and I feel like the way that the character was used was pretty good. I do understand if some people in the LGBTQ community would find his character to be quite stereotypical. I can understand that criticism. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen much about this film, but I could anticipate that criticism coming up. I do think near the end, though, we did get to see a bit more of a badass side to him, where he wasn't just, you know, a campy gay character. And so that kind of helped to balance it out. But I can understand the criticism of people thinking, well, he's just a stereotypical gay character. But to that, I would say that, look, this is a huge step for Disney. This is a huge step for Disney. You know, that corporation, you know, that mouse was sweating underneath his shirt. Like, oh, he was sweating underneath his collar. Like, okay, we're gonna have a gay character. We'll have a gay character. Oh God. Okay, let's see what the stockholders think. Oh God. Oh no. You know that mouse was sweating, okay? So for Artie to be here at all, not saying that we should settle for the bare minimum, but I do think that he was used relatively well, and this is a step, a small step, but a big step for Disney in the right direction. Next up, I did actually want to give a hand to the dogs in the film. I actually wanted to give a hand to the dogs, because I like the fact that this film didn't forget its origins completely. First of all, there are references to the original 101 Dalmatians films. You do have the iconic Cruella drive, where Cruella is like driving in her car with that hunchback. Like, I think Emma Stone did such a good job of recreating that. So that was also present as a reference to the original film. We did also have that scene where we see the dogs and their owners, or their, you know, dog parents as they call them nowadays, but their dog parents looking quite similar to the dogs that they have, almost as if they're actually related. That's something that came from the original 101 Dalmatians. That was a nice touch to add to this film. And of course you have the element of dogs, you know, being important, an important part of the story itself. I mean, you have the evil Dalmatians, which I don't know a lot about each breed of dog and their personality traits and everything, but I'm pretty sure Dalmatians aren't that aggressive. I'm pretty sure this is something that has been fabricated, okay? I'm pretty sure this is anti-Dalmatian propaganda. And obviously it's because it's a Cruella film, so it made sense that the Dalmatians had to get the short end of the stick and had to be portrayed in this awful light. But I don't think Dalmatians are that aggressive. Like, I don't know many Dalmatians myself, but I don't think that they're that aggressive. I did also keep waiting for the film itself to give us a reason for why Cruella became so anti-Dalmatians to the point where she would make a coat out of them. There is a reference to that in this film, but they never really explain how she got there, like to that extent. I guess because they kind of helped kill her mother, but I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second. But in terms of the other dogs as well, Cruella grew up with a dog, so she was really attached to that one. I can't remember his name. But the other dog, Blink, I think his name is, or Blinky or something like that. He is so adorable. He is versatile. Okay, he's a rat. He's whatever you need him to be. And he is Horace's dog, and Horace loves him a lot. And yeah, I feel like those dogs just played a really important part of the story, and I think that's a nice homage to 101 Dalmatians. If there's one character that didn't quite make sense to me in this film, it would be Mark Strong's character. I don't know what Mark Strong is doing here. I don't know what Mark Strong is doing here. I initially thought that he would be Estella's dad, like something along those lines. Why would you get Mark Strong to play the role that he plays in this film? He has like 3 lines in total. He's basically just the Baroness's butler slash bodyguard until he sides with Estella, because he, I guess, remembers that the Baroness wanted to kill her at birth, and he realizes that that was wrong, and that now he has to support her, and he's loyal to her for some reason. I don't know what's going on. And lastly, I did want to touch on the future of the film and how this film kind of hints towards the direction it might be going in. So first of all, as I mentioned previously, I did have issues with the way that they kind of transitioned Estella into Cruella. I felt like it was a bit clunky. I understood that, you know, she was driven mad by the fact that she realized that the Baroness was the reason why her mother, or at least the woman that she thought was her mother, had died, and right in front of her eyes. So I understand that part, but the part where she starts being so abrasive and so horrible to Jasper and Horace didn't really make sense. Okay, it was kind of out of the blue a little bit, and they kind of explained it by basically saying that she has, you know, hints of crazy and mental health issues that she inherited from her equally crazy mother. But yeah, like that was a bit off, honestly, and I think it's a way to kind of explain why Cruella in 101 Dalmatians treats Jasper and Horace so poorly, but they're gonna have to do a little bit more building of that bridge in order for that to make sense. And that overall is one of the bigger problems of the film, is that it doesn't quite build that bridge entirely, but I do think that's because they are planning for the future. I think they're planning to, you know, have sequels where we start to see Cruella, you know, in this time become more like the Cruella that we know of in the 101 Dalmatians franchise, who's just so much more cruel. She's so much more horrible, and also, of course, she's at the point where she is actually skinning dogs and wearing them as fur coats, and we haven't really gotten to that stage with this version of Cruella because she's just faking it at this point. I would be very interested to see what they do with the characters of Anita and Roger. They introduced the character of Anita and when she's a kid and when she goes to this posh private school with Estella when they're younger, and then she becomes this reporter reporter who kind of covers Cruella and helps her boost that kind of notoriety within the fashion world. And then of course you have Roger, who's introduced as the Baroness's lawyer, who then becomes like a musician, I guess, or he's just a musician in his free time. And we do have that end credits scene where he's singing the iconic song, the iconic Cruella de Vil song. And again, I do feel like that storyline is just ripe for a sequel, and it's very much intentionally so. I mean, the fact that Cruella literally plops a Dalmatian at their doorsteps it's pretty on the nose. Okay, we know where they're going with this, but I do think that a sequel would be pretty cool to see where these characters end up, and again bridge that gap that we now have between the Cruella at the end of this film, who's unhinged but not evil, not devilish like the Cruella that we know from 101 Dalmatians. And so with all of that being said, I'm going to be giving Cruella an 8 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Cruella, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this film down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!